5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're live with Neve.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Here we are live with Neve. Good morning. It is a beautiful, it is hump day. It is Thursday. Hell, I don't even know. It's hump day. Sorry, people. Any rate, we're going to have a great day today. I don't even know what day it is, Julie. I'm completely confused. I'm prone to wandering.
I don't ever know what day it is either.
I wandered into the studio and I saw you and Glenn hard at work, and a big hello from Kevin down in North Carolina. At any rate, we're going to have some good entertainment for you guys today. As everybody who's watching knows, this is what we call a pop show. We just pop up out of nowhere, and here we are.
We're like a flash mob for podcasting.
Yes. Julie, you sound very good. I'm just going to warn you, stay a little back from the mic. You've got a nice, robust, dulcet tone this morning.
What I don't understand before we go on air. There's no, you guys can't hear me, and then when we go on air,
I hear you gorgeously
I'm
now.
So loud.
That's okay.
How about now?
You sound great. You sound wonderful. Everybody who's watching, as you know, on our show, we bring you rock and roll, we bring you country, we bring you pop music, we bring you comedians, we bring you madness, mirth, and mayhem on a regular basis. Today, we're going to get back and we're going to head down south, have a little Nashville conversation here. Our next guest has written a bunch of great songs. He's been a big part of the music business for a long time, and I think you're going to enjoy hearing from him. Glen Cain is going to come on. We're going to talk about music, his great songs, and the changes he's seen in country music over the decades. I'm kind of an old school guy. I tend to like the older stuff, so I'm going to enjoy this conversation, and I hope you do too. Julie, I guess without further ado, should we bring Glen on? There he is.
Hey, Glen. How you doing?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good
How are you, sir? How you doing down there?
Well, I'm still trying to decide if I'm awake or not, because I'm in California and I'm 3 hours behind you.
Oh, I forgot you're in LA today, or out west. Where are you exactly?
Ontario, about 42 miles out of LA.
Okay, all right. Well, you having fun out there? Except when
it's not the end of the world, Neil, but you can see it from here.
Yes, sir. I love it, man. Definitely. Well, okay. So tell me, what are you doing out there? Are you traveling, visiting friends? Are you playing music? What are you doing?
Well, I'm actually doing what most everybody in the country music business is doing today, trying to do something to stay alive until we can get back to touring.
Yes.
If I don't fall apart here.
I hear you.
I'm luckier than some, I guess, that unless you're a really big superstar that have all the money in the bank that you can live on. I own part of a trucking company. So I'm actually talking to you this morning from the cab of a semi at the TA truck stop in Ontario, California.
All right. Well,
I grew up on a farm and I could drive these things since I was 14 years old. And owning part of them, now I can use them to help make a living.
Hey, you know what? That's a good thing. I'm glad, you're helping keep the country alive. They don't say thank you to you guys enough.
Yep. There you are.
The truckers. Yep, here we are. But yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for the truckers right now, the past year, well, always, people don't understand how much of our goods and services are delivered directly because of the truckers. You got a tough job out there. A lot of yahoos.
I guess I'm really lucky. I grew up around trucks and I grew up around country music. So
well, I
was bound to do one or the other. Now I'm doing both.
Well, that's a good thing. We're glad you're here, and glad everybody needs to make a living, and there's no. I've done a lot of crazy things in my life to earn a dollar. When I was younger, and I was a young guy. I had my first daughter when I was about 19 or 20, I guess. I was very young, and One time I had a job as a grave digger. It was it was an interesting job. All I can tell you, you learn things, but it was a stepping stone. I've always been a musician as well, so I was between gigs and had money, had to have something, and wherever you make a dollar, it's an honest living.
Yeah, whatever you do to make a buck.
Exactly. As long as you're putting food on the table, I have no quarrel with anybody who's working. So tell me, when did you start playing country music? What you have family that played? Did you learn in church? All the above. Tell us a little bit about when you were growing up, how you started getting into music.
Well, I grew up on a big cattle farm in West Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
and was very fortunate in growing up around country music.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's oldest sister was married to a professional guitar player,
Mm-hmm.
and he started out in West Virginia with Little Jimmy Dickens, Red Savine, Hawkshaw Hawkins when they were working local radio shows in West Virginia. I grew up around all of those guys, and just really had a love for country music. And when I got to college, uh, I was fortunate I could play football, so I got a football scholarship to West Virginia University. But while I was there, I met some guys that had a little band
Mm-hmm.
and started jamming with them. And the next thing I knew, I was the lead singer for the band.
All right.
And we just kind of parlayed that into one of the more popular cover bands in northern West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio. I had a
Mm-hmm.
semi-regular shot on the WWVA Wheeling Jamboree out of Wheeling,
Right.
and stayed with that really until I graduated from college. I'd taken advanced ROTC in college because at the
Mm-hmm.
time I was thinking about a military career. So
Sure.
I ended
My
up
dad
doing
had it.
what I told them I would do. I took a RA commission in the infantry, went to airborne
Mm-hmm.
school, Ranger school, ended up earning one of those crazy green berets, and
Okay.
did
Thank you for
that.
your
Then
service.
I discovered real fast that I enjoyed singing much more than I did being shot at. So,
I bet. I bet.
so I served out my term, got out, went back to
Mm-hmm.
reserve status, and met some guys who worked with Conway Twitty.
All right.
And they said Conway was looking for somebody who could handle security and kind of help with things, crowd control at the shows, what have you.
Right.
And I ended up traveling around with Conway for about 3 years, worked it into where I could do a couple of songs every now and then on a show, uh,
Mm-hmm.
honed some of my writing skills,
Mm-hmm.
and then I kind of left Conway, branched out on my own, opened for a while for Merle Haggard, opened for a while for Waylon Jennings.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Tell me a
Going
little bit
pretty good,
about
and
those.
then I went brain dead and got married, and everybody said get out and get a real job,
Oh,
and
I hear you.
so
Well,
I left the
tell me a
music
little bit.
business and
Let
got
me
into
go ahead.
management,
Mm-hmm.
bought into a trucking company, and then what's it been now? 3 years ago, I guess, when Merle Haggard passed away, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sirius XM Radio did a tribute show to Merle,
Mm-hmm.
and they asked if anybody had any Merle stories, what have you. And having opened for Merle, I had a couple of really
Mm-hmm.
funny stories, so I called in with the story, and turned out that Paula Nelson, Willie's daughter, was in the
Mm-hmm.
studio, and we got to talking, and she said, "Well, can you still sing?" And I said, "I don't know. You tell me." And I sang a little bit a cappella of the old Ray Price's "Crazy Arms,"
All
and she said,
right.
"Why aren't you still in this business?" And I said, Paula, I haven't done anything in 40 years." She said, "Well,
Wow.
do you still have any original songs?" And I go, "Yeah, I didn't sell them all. I've got some." So
Mm-hmm.
put together a little demo disc, sent it down to her, and she arranged a recording deal in Austin. Went down and we recorded a 5-song EP, and I figured that's the end of this, and
Right.
put out two of them on a little promotion company, and turned out they went
Mm-hmm.
to top 10 on traditional country. And
Hey, man, congratulations.
so
Great job there,
here
Glenn.
here I am again.
Well, let me back up and ask you. Tell us, would you mind telling us what those few stories you told about
Yes.
your earlier days? We'd love to hear those. when you were
Oh, my Merle Haggard story?
Yes, sir.
We were opening for Merle in 1975, I believe it was, in Huntington, West Virginia at the Memorial Fieldhouse.
I know exactly
and my
where
fiddle
it is.
player knew a couple of the guys on Merle's band, so we showed up early.
Mhm.
Merle got off of the bus, and this was the first show I'd ever opened for Merle. First time I ever met him.
Right.
And my first thought when he got off of the bus is, "My God, you're little." but
oh my gosh, that's funny.
He wanted to know where you could buy liquor. Well, this is my home state, West Virginia, and
Right.
at the time it was ABC stores. And I
Right.
said, "Well, you got to go to the state store." And he said, "Do you know where there is one?" And I said, "Yeah, there's one about 3 miles from here." Well, in the meantime, my fiddle player's talking to the guys in the band, and somehow it got mentioned that I'd been a Green Beret in the Army. And so Merle gave me 2 $100 bills, said, "Go buy whatever your band wants, what you want." I drink George Dickel, told me what his band wanted, and I go make a liquor run. Well, I come back, get out of the vehicle, and I've got this big cardboard box full of liquor. Start walking towards his bus. He turns and sees me coming and starts singing the Ballad of the Green Berets a cappella, but the line where it goes, "Fighting soldiers from the sky, fearless men who jump and die." Merle sings,
Oh,
"Fighting
man.
soldier from the sky, you drop that booze, you're gonna die."
I love it, man. That's great. Well, yeah, I know the man liked to consume his Dickel for sure. Hell, I know myself. I've done my best. I tried to outdrink Merle and failed miserably. Here I am. I'm sober now. That'll tell you anything about me. I had enough. I just, you can only stay on that diet for so long. It'll kill you. But, what can I tell you? I definitely enjoyed my whiskey, and I had plenty of my share to enjoy. And now I just enjoy being a designated driver. It's a scary world out there. Things change. But
I'd be all right if they quit bottling tequila and Fireball.
Oh, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Both of which I was intimately familiar with, for sure. Well, tell me, would you like to sing a song a cappella for us?
Do what now?
Would you like to sing a song a cappella for us?
Oh man,
that'd be great.
You really gonna lose your audience, aren't you? Here we go.
No,
all right, let's see.
No, not at all.
All right, let's see what I can do here.
I like this guy already.
I love
blue ain't the word for the way that I feel, or the storm that's brewing in this heart of mine. Well, this ain't no crazy dream. I know that it's real. You're someone else's love now, you're not mine. And crazy arms that reach to hold somebody new. 'Cause my yearning heart keeps saying you're not mine. And my crazy heart knows soon to another you'll be wed. And that's why I'm lonely all the time.
All right. All right. Well, everybody, we are now half past the hour. We're on live with Glen Cain.
Crooner.
I sound much better on record.
I do too. But remember, I'm not really a guy. I'm not a host on television. I just play one. Same kind of thing. No, man. I've heard your record and I've heard your music, and you sound fine. You sound great this morning. So we're going to roll. We're going to go to a break, I think, real quick. Is that right, Julie? We come up half past the hour, and we'll be right back with Glen Cain. We're talking country in Nashville in the good old days.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Metz, and I'm on Live with Neve.
They sentenced me to 20 years of boredom. change the system from within. I'm coming now, I'm coming to reward them.
All right, all right. Here we are at 1:30. We're on live with Neve, and it is a beautiful day here. It is cold out, but the sun's out. There's no snow coming down, so I have no complaints. We're talking to our guest, Glen Cain. Hey, Sharon. Good morning, Sharon. Hope you're good wherever you are and you're staying warm. It's a bit brisk here. Actually, look over here. You can see the king is looking over our show today, sitting over my right shoulder and keeping an eye on the proceedings here. There you go.
Oh, I didn't mean to
That's
make
okay.
him go away.
No, that's
Sorry.
okay. The king has made his appearance. We're all right.
He
watching
now
over
has
us.
left the studio.
He has left the studio for a while. So we're talking to Glen Cain, longtime country music star, producer, musician, and all-time cool guy who's kind of resurrected his career. He's great, and I think you're going to like him. We're going to get right back to him. So here we are. Hey, Glen.
Hey, Glen.
For everybody, Glen's out in California. He's a little shy of LA, about an hour outside town in a secure location. He's helping keep us all eating around the country. He's not only a musician, but he's also a long-haul trucker. And he's living the dream, man. He's out there keeping us fed, making a living, talking country with us. So Glenn, do you have a load? Are you en route somewhere today, or are you are you between loads, or what are you doing today?
Actually, I'm taking a break to do your show. I picked up a load last night out of Buena Park going to Grand Prairie, Texas.
Okay.
And then from Grand Prairie, Texas, I'll go down to McAllen, Texas. From McAllen, Texas, I'll go back up to Puyallup, Washington. From Puyallup, Washington, I'll go back to Michigan. I need to go back to playing music so I can rest.
Oh man, I bet you sound like you. Gosh, you're getting all around. When will you finally be back home?
I'll be back home probably 8 days.
Okay.
And then hopefully, my management group says that we will go back to touring hopefully the 1st of May. So,
well, great.
I've got a few gigs lined up in the interim, but they're few and far between right now. And my entire tour schedule last year was canceled from the time this COVID thing hit.
Of course.
I was scheduled to be on tour all summer with Scott Haggard, who's one of Merle's 4 sons.
Right.
And it just, nobody's booking anything. I mean, nobody's working. The superstars aren't working either. I mean, nobody's out there.
Everybody I talk to who's out there in Nashville, almost everybody, and I mean, like you said, people are way higher than just the average guys working at the club down the block. They're all at home. They're all writing a lot, but everybody's bored to death. Everybody wants to get out and, it's like having a racehorse and not letting him run. It just sits in the barn or out in the field. It's not very happy, It wants to get out there and kick ass. And musicians are a lot like that.
Everybody's starved for entertainment. I mean, everybody's starved for something to do, but till they open things up and we can get in. I mean, the Opry's finally working again, but they're only working on Saturday night, and they're doing, they're doing a limited audience. So
yes, it's hard. I know there's some showcases have been going.
They're down to 50%, 25% capacity. They can't make the money back it takes to book a band.
Right.
And a lot of these clubs, I mean, I get calls from people, could you come in and do a show for us? Well, fine. What can you afford to pay? I can't pay my band with what they want to pay.
It's an awful situation, and I don't. There's no quick answers either. I really have to say, I know that everybody's doing everything online, but there's limits to that. People really are gonna, when all this comes to a head and is done, people are gonna bust loose and want to really. Entertainment's going to go through the roof once things get to normal. And I say this if they get to normal, because I don't know right now what normal is, and this isn't political in nature. This is purely. We're dealing with
I don't know that we'll ever be back to what we considered normal. I don't know what.
I agree.
I've never been so unsure about what the future is going to be or what's going to happen.
Right.
If anybody would have told me 10, 15, 20 years ago that I'd be looking at things in the condition they're in this country today, I'd have called him a liar.
Absolutely. It is very uncertain times. And hopefully, I'm an optimist. I always believe that people persevere, will get ahead sooner or later. And I'm going to try to be optimistic in spite of, we face a lot of things. But I know a lot of our parents and your generation, my parents' generation, my grandparents, they've faced tough times too. And they've always managed to get through. And I just hope that will continue. I keep that in my prayers. So getting back, when you were playing with Waylon and them, were you considered an outlaw country guy, or were you more of a mainstream guy? Where did you fit into that kind of way people designate?
I know, and I've worked with people in the outlaw movement. I worked with Waylon.
Mm-hmm.
Worked a couple of 3 shows with Waylon. Worked with Merle.
Mm-hmm.
I consider myself a traditional country entertainer.
Mm-hmm.
My band, steel guitar, lead guitar, fiddle player. You
Mm-hmm.
know, uh, I'm not comfortable with this stuff they call country music today. To me,
Right.
it's not country music. Country music tells a story. You can
Mm-hmm.
feel something in the song. You can relate to the song.
Right.
Um, I don't take anything away from the musical talents of anybody that's in any genre of music, but I jokingly tell one of my sons who's a real hard rock heavy metal fan. I told him, I said,
Mm-hmm.
I missed a chance to be a multi-millionaire. All I needed to do was get a guitar so far out of tune that nobody in the world could play with it. Go down and stand on the street corner and wait for a truck to go by, let it run over my foot and record the screens while beating on that guitar, and I'd have been a millionaire.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. Well, I share with you a lot of the feelings about country music. I know what's good when I hear it, and there are some great acts out there. But, they certainly aren't. I have to tell you, I was in a rental car a couple of weeks ago, and the station was tuned to country, and it came on, and I was just riding, and I listened to it. I just was like, Lord have mercy, what have they done to this song? It had so much auto tune. I thought I was listening to Beyonce or something. It was just this auto tune mess, and it had a drum machine that was not only poorly programmed, the sample sounds they used sucked, and it just wasn't country. It was like this bland pop music with a little fiddle in the background. I don't even know if they had fiddle. It was just very bland bullshit country. And I just turned it off. I had to find some rock and roll to listen to because I love good country, and there's a lot out there. I have one of our friends, Sam Rourke. If you haven't heard of her yet, she's on my interviews. You can look at her on our YouTube page. And Sam is a young voice coming up who's just great, and she's authentic. And I'll put it this way: she's lived a lot more years than her young life she should have, and she's had it hard. She's hit the floor. She's come back up, and her songs reflect hope and optimism, and she's just a real great entertainer. And I tell you what, I thought I'd had a crazy life, but I'm 60 years old, and this young lady's been through the mill and come out shining, and she kicks ass. Uh, we have a friend of ours join us. Toby's from LA. She's out in your neighborhood right now. Toby knows everybody, and I can guarantee you some of her friends will be checking out your stuff. Why don't you tell everybody where they can get your product, your EP, and so forth? Where can we find that?
I'm sorry?
Where can we find your EP and your music? Where can somebody pick that up?
Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
All the usual spots.
I think it's on every streaming site out there.
Okay.
There are six songs out there. A seventh one, if you count a cover of the old Hank Williams "I Saw the Light,"
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a live video of a guest shot appearance that I did with a band at the Soaring Eagle Casino in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. A cousin of mine had a band, asked me to come in and do a guest shot doing Folsom Prison Blues. But the 6 songs that are out there, I wrote 3 of the 6.
Wow. Well, I'm a big fan of Folsom Prison Blues. I've played that in some serious roadhouses down south, and Hell, I was in once where we actually had a guy get shot in the club while we were playing. A whole bunch of outlaw country and a lot of rock and roll. We were playing for a mixed crowd, as we call it. And what happened, as I recall, was a guy came in intending to shoot his victim. He takes a shot at him. And of course, you know, when a gunshot goes off, you hear this. And with our band playing, it was amazing anybody heard it at all. But I'm watching it. I see the guy at the end of the club run in, take aim at somebody, shoot. That guy doesn't get hit. He hauls ass out the back door past me to my right, because there's a stage door right to the right. He runs through the house, across the stage, and out. Well, then I see the guy with the gun. He shot at him, I believe, a second time, if I can recall correctly. At that point, I'm sitting there playing, and all of a sudden you see this. I'm gone. The band doesn't notice that the shooting started yet. I hit the floor, and I'm peeking between two Marshall amps. In the meantime, the guy, when he took his second shot, hit a guy in the neck. Now, I can't make this shit up. The guy just the luckiest or the most, he's either the luckiest or the worst luck fellow in the world. He got shot, and it just grazed his throat, went right by him and left a burn. Bloodied him up, but he's laying on the floor screaming his head off. People don't realize what people do when they think they're shot. It ain't pretty. And the most cold thing I ever saw was a big old biker walk over to him and go, "You're all right. Quit whining and get up." Meantime, all hell was breaking loose in the club. And when the guy with the gun had run out the back door, I'm watching him kind of run through the club. It happened so quick, I can't describe. It's taken me longer to describe than the time it took to happen. And this guy, he ran through, and he stopped at the door for a second. As he's looking back, I see him and we make eye contact. And I'm on the floor going, I'm just a drummer, man. You know, I'm like trying to crawl my ass through between the crack of two Marshall stacks. If I could have gone through it, I would have. There was nowhere to go. And thankfully, he just took off. But, you know, that's the kind of, real countries in the old days. I mean, we're talking a whole different animal. This wasn't like today going to some pop show and everybody's,
I laugh when I hear some of these younger guys talk about paying their dues, and I look at them and I say, well, you know, how many chicken wire bars have you worked?
Oh, right.
And they'll look at you like, what? I said, how many chicken wire bars have you worked? Well, what are you talking about?
That's just the Blues
I said,
Brothers
well, I'll tell you about the
yeah.
first one I ever worked was in Saberton, West Virginia. Walked into this little joint, and the entire bandstand is surrounded with chicken wire. And it's like, what the world? It's to keep the band from getting hit by the flying beer bottles when the fight starts.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, people think that that's a joke, but the Blues Brothers made it seem like there's a lot of people out there who tell the story but have never seen a real chicken wire. I will tell you this. I played at the Gibsonton Showtown Bar in Florida, and I will tell you, we wished we had chicken wire. And I'm kidding. They never threw any bottles at us, but I mean, that place, if you ever saw the movie Carney, you know, my band, we had a little rehearsal house right around the corner from it. So, and you know, in those days, rock and roll and country all kind of intermeshed down in Florida and Tennessee and Georgia. And, you know, we played it all. And I was a young guy. It was a whole new world. I'm a guy who grew up in the New York area and then moved to Florida when I was like 16. And it was a whole wide world of awakening for me. I learned all the things you learn down south, which gives you experience. For example, I've stood behind a horse, and I learned the hard way that you don't stand behind a horse. I learned that pigs bite hard. I learned that if you grab a pig when it hauls ass, it makes a fucking hell of a racket. Pardon my French for those of you out in Montreal. All those things like dipping snuff, it's another thing. We're only when I moved there would I ever experience this, sitting in a feed store with a bunch of guys drinking beer, smoking cigarettes, maybe a little bit of wacky tobacco going on, and shooting rats that are running around in the feed store. Now, this kid who's grown up in New York and shit, I'm down there with these, you know, my friends, my redneck friends, I'll call them, because I've earned my redneck. I mean, I've hoed oranges with Jake Rocker and his dad's Cypress Groves. But I learned the hard way. The best one, those shooting rats, all the good old boys said, "Where are you from? You sound like a Yankee." And I went, "Well, I kind of am. I'm from New York." And they said, "Well, you want to try some skull?" So they gave me some skull and told me that it's like going on a snipe hunt. They told me you swallow it, it'll get you a good buzz. So I've done that once. and never have enjoyed the taste of skull ever since. It kind of, I don't know about you. Did you ever swallow skull by accident?
It's an entirely different world when you're out there and you're doing the cover band thing where you're working the clubs and you're doing that
Right.
kind of thing is doing, doing the
Yeah.
bigger time thing when you're doing the stage shows and whatever. I remember
Right.
we were booked into a place in the West Virginia coal fields back when I was working with the band in college, the Dallas Pine
Hmm.
Room. We're
Okay.
sitting up and we're doing the sound check and everything, and the club manager comes up and he says, just thought I'd give you fair warning when you take your break, Tiny's going to come up and he's going to want to sing.
Right.
Really? Okay. I said, well, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but it's really hard for a band to just go on cold with somebody that they've never heard or anything else. So we may not let Tiny sing. And he's like, well, you do whatever you want to do. Okay. So we do the first set, we take our break, and honest to God, the biggest thing I've ever seen without a motor in it comes walking up to
Oh
the
no.
stage and goes, I'm Tiny and I want to sing. Really?
Yes, sir.
Butch runs the band. Go tell him what you want to sing. Butch was my drummer. He swore he'd kill me after that. But it's like, go talk to Butch. Whatever you want to do, fine with me.
Uh,
I got no problem here, bud.
I love it. So he did he sing? Was he any good?
Mm. Well, actually, he wasn't that bad. He was
All
kind of
right.
like he's kind of like Jim Neighbors on Gomer Pyle. He opens his mouth to sing, and you don't expect that to really come out.
Hey, you know what? He found his niche, man. He's probably like the halftime show in West Virginia every night.
Yeah,
I,
exactly.
I've spent a lot of time through there. I've been all through, Morganton, which is your alma mater, and Huntington, and I used to work for a company. We're an audio video company, and we went all over the United States doing the DeBartolo malls. So I would stay in Uniontown, Pennsylvania when I'd go down to do West Virginia, and then I'd have to get up to Pittsburgh and Erie, and then I'd go to Chicago. So I know
Hmm.
I've driven every road in this. I've driven most of the roads in the country, the major ones, at least the ones that truckers stay
Yeah,
on.
we were talking earlier about talent and a lot of these genres and the real musical talent of people who play in
Hmm.
that genre. Um,
Right.
there's a bluegrass group. I think they did a couple of albums. You might be familiar with them. The name of the group is called Old and in the Way.
Oh, yeah, Vassar Clements. I grew up. I know the record. I could play it. I mean, I'll just
And
sit here with some brushes. Yeah.
the ironic way that they got started was a group of those guys would get together on Saturdays and they would jam. There was Vassar Clemens and I can't remember all of the names now, but they were top notch bluegrass musicians.
Hmm. Right. Oh, yeah.
They were having a jam one Saturday night, and one of the guys said, he says, my neighbor plays banjo, and he's a pretty good banjo player, and he'd like to know if you guys would mind if he came down and jammed with us. And they're
Hmm.
like, if he can play, no big deal. We're just jamming. So the guy shows up the next Saturday night and is a fantastic banjo player.
Hmm.
Starts talking with them and says, we're pretty good. We ought to put together a group and put out an album. And they did. They called the group. This guy came up with the name for the group, Old and in the Way. The banjo player was Jerry Garcia
Jerry
of the
Garcia,
Grateful
yes,
Dead.
sir. Uh-huh. Well, it's funny because Jerry and the Grateful Dead did more to popularize a lot of country music. Like, me and my uncle went riding down South Carolina, or Texas bound. All those old country songs that nobody ever heard, prior to the Dead doing them. And hell, I was listening to that as a result of my older brother, who was a real child of the '60s. He went to Woodstock. And basically, all I did, he was a stepbrother. And so all I did was steal his records and then put them on my Sears record player. I'd stack like 5 of them, and then I'd play drums over until he came home and whipped my ass and take his records back and tell me not to scratch them up by stacking them. But it's funny how, that music was transferred out. I mean, he was as much of a hippie as anybody you'd ever know, but he would be sitting there listening to this good old time music in New York suburb of all places. But it gave me a big appreciation. And music to me is just something I like it all as long as it's good. And I say that because there's tons of different kind of music around the world, and some of it I'd sit at home and listen to, some of it I won't. Some of it I'll just turn off as soon as I hear it if I really can't stand it. But I tend to listen to everybody and give them, a few good shots, see what it's about. A lot of us as we get older think that the young kids will never come up with anything good, and I say, well, we probably might not live long enough to see it, but things do eventually come around. And I'm lucky. I see my kids, and I see a lot of my friends' kids, and I've had some guests on the show whose kids are following in the music business. There's a lot of great talent coming up. And I'm real optimistic, even though some of the crap we hear on the radio on country music, it's like it's a big circle coming back around, because traditional country, once people
What
hear it,
happened
they're
with
exposed to it.
what happened with country music was all of the old school producers and A&R guys, Chet Atkins, Billy Sherrill, um,
Mm-hmm.
Owen Bradley, all of
Mm-hmm.
these guys retired, died, moved on. And then the big world of corporate takeovers back in the late 70s and the early 80s, coming into the 80s,
Right.
all the big conglomerates, Sony, what have you, bought up, Decca Records, MCA, all of these, they bought them all up. And
Right.
they send all these young New York and LA executives to Nashville
Right.
who thought they were being sent to Siberia. Questions were like,
Yeah.
do people wear shoes down there? Can we get our latte at the, is there a
Right.
Starbucks?
Right. Mm-hmm.
They came in, and instead of embracing what had made Nashville Nashville, what had
Right.
made it the country music capital of the world,
Mm-hmm.
they decided that they're going to make Nashville another LA, another New York. And they
Right.
started changing the
Mm-hmm.
style of the music,
The formula
everything,
was all,
until,
yeah, it was definitely a different recipe.
with the old school guys, you could hear the first two bars of a song and you knew exactly who the artist was.
Mm-hmm.
You knew who the backup band was.
Right.
If you heard a certain guitar lick, you knew it was Ernest Tubb and the Texas Troubadours. If you heard that,
Right.
that 3-chord bass and lead lick from Luther Perkins, you knew it was Johnny Cash and the Tennessee Three. There
Right.
was no mistake about the music.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's cookie cutter music. It all
Right.
sounds the same. They all,
Right.
I mean, they're good kids. I'm not taking anything away
Yeah.
from
Oh
them. They're
yeah,
good kids and
absolutely.
they're talented, but it all sounds the same. And the
Right.
music all sounds the same. And the
Well,
stories about how country songs, classic songs, got written. There's a story. Hank Williams, when he was young, his mother would drive him to shows and things, radio shows and what have you, before he got out on his own. And they were
right.
coming home
Right.
to Coleman, Alabama one night. It was late. They were tired. And as they topped the hill coming into Coleman, Hank saw the beacon from the airport, the old white and
Mm-hmm.
green light that used to spin. And he turned to his
Right.
mother and he said, uh, "We're almost home. I just saw the light," and went home. And 25 minutes later, he'd written, "I saw the light."
There you go. Well, I think I've noticed that in all kinds of music. The regional differences, like Motown, the Detroit sound, the Philly sound, the New York sound, the Muscle Shoals sound, the Nashville sound, the Bakersfield sound, the San Francisco sound. Lately, you had Portland with the thrash, not thrash, with the Nirvana and bands like that came along. And the music business has these big changes sweep through from time to time. But I think the regional record labels and producers, and like you say, the performers who you could pick out, excuse me, you could pick out the players, like you said. You could, like, listening to Willie Nelson play guitar, you can always tell it's Willie, just the way he.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's like, wow, I know who it is, even if he's on somebody else's stuff, especially back in the old days. Well, it's been great talking to you, man. I could sit here and talk country all day with you. It's been fun, but we're running out of time. We're 10:57. Do you have any advice you'd like to give any of these young up and coming country folks, young bands? What do you think what advice could you give them for the long term?
Work every possible gig that you can work.
Mm-hmm.
Hone your skill, and don't give up on your dream.
Right.
It's I was out of the business for 40 years. I never dreamed I'd ever be back in it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, boom, and ironically, the number one song that I have out of the 6 songs that are out there right now is a song called Hold Back the Dawn. And I
Okay.
wrote the first verse and chorus of that song when I was in
Mm-hmm.
college.
Wow.
And, it's one of those stories where I'd met this girl my freshman year in college. We dated for 3 years. We were engaged. We were going to get married. I came back for football camp between my junior and senior year, took her out to a movie. She said, I really need to talk to you about something. I said, does it have anything to do with the fact you're not wearing your engagement ring? And she broke up with me. She married a heart surgeon. I wrote a song.
Yeah, there you go.
Went back to the dorm and wrote the first verse and the chorus. Well, we're doing this 5-song EP that we did down in Austin, Texas. And the 5th song was actually supposed to be a duet, myself and Paula Nelson. And Paula's schedule, she couldn't get to the studio. We had the studio booked, and everybody's going, well, we need another song. Do we have one? And the other 2 songwriters that were there, they were going through their books like crazy. And Matt Hubbard, who produced the record, said, have you got anything? And I said, well, I've got one, Matt, but I said, it's not finished. They said, what do you mean? I said, well, I got a verse and a chorus. And he said, well, how's it go? And I sang it for him. And so he sat down at the piano and he started playing out the melody. And as he was playing it, he came up to where we would do the turnaround. And I said, just keep going. He said, okay. Yeah. And as he did, and I just started singing. I started singing, well, all that you left me is your memory and a broken heart full of misery. I'll face tomorrow and I'll face it alone. Loving a memory and knowing you're gone. And they all said, thought you didn't have a second verse. And I said, I don't. I just made that up. Maybe we can make something out of it. And Matt's like, don't change a thing. That's the second verse. And ironically, out of the 6 songs that's out there, that's the most popular. That's the #1 song of the 6 that are out there.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and give it a listen. I'm going to friend you on YouTube, and hopefully you can do the same back. We'll subscribe. And everybody, if you're out there, please subscribe to Glen Cain's YouTube page and check out his music. It's on all of the available sites we can mention, Spotify, iTunes, blah, 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 blah. It's on all the places. If you can't find him, come find me. All right, everybody. It's been a great Wednesday. It is 11 o'clock, the top of the hour, and we're going to roll out of here. This is all we've got for now. Thank you for joining us. And a big thank you to Mr. Glen Cain for being with us. We're really glad he came on with us, and he talked a lot about some things. I hope you learned something. And I will tell you, just go out and buy his stuff. We'll be back. We have some other pop shows coming up today, and if you just check out our page or my Facebook page or the band page or any of the other sources we're available on. And last but not least, please, we work on tips. PayPal me /Live with Neve. Send us what you can. You won't get any eternal salvation or your money back kind of deal. All you'll get is a thank you from us, because every bit helps. We're like NPR. Instead of National Public Radio, it's Neil's Poverty Radio. So send us some coin, and we'll be going to Nashville in April, and hopefully when I'm down there, we'll get to talk to Glen Cain. We're rolling out.
Follow, subscribe, like us anywhere you find webcasts and on all of our social media to get bonus material.